Hi everyone. So today we're going to be taking a look at I think I've got 10 favorite plants from over the course of this winter. Now you are going to be watching this, I think if you're watching it the day it's released on March 1st, so technically the first day of spring. But these are plants that have really caught my eye for varying reasons over the course of the last 3 months. And interestingly enough, today is the coldest day that we've had this winter here. It's like negative feels like outside, which is rare for here. But I was kind of shocked this year, you guys, because I had a lot of new plants in my collection that I hadn't had for a winter yet. And I was kind of worried about how they were going to do. And some of them really surprised me. Some of them have done more in the colder months than they had in the previous months. So a lot of those made it on the list today. But let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And I want to start with my oh so lovely Hoya Wilbur Graves. And one of the reasons I want to start with this plant is because, as you can see right now, this plant is in bloom, and this plant has been blooming for me pretty much non-stop since it first started blooming in spring of last year, but it's just continued to bloom like crazy throughout the winter. And honestly, it's blooming more right now on the coldest day of the year than it has all winter long. I just think it's hilarious because when I did my recent 3 years of growing Hoya video, it was like none of my Hoyas seemed to be in actual bloom. They were all starting to bloom, but none of them were open like this. And I was like, really? You guys are gonna do this to me? Like the day I'm doing a video all about Hoya, none of y'all wanna have open blooms. But this is what I was trying to explain to you in that video, was that this plant has just been blooming non-stop. So you can see we've got one open down there. We got two more back here. You can't even really see them up in the top because I can't tilt this. I don't wanna dump everything out. But up underneath the top of this arch up here, there's two more up there. One is actually dropping its old flowers and one's about to pop some more open. I mean, it's just going crazy. This one's getting ready to pop open down here. And it's just, I mean, I just love it, you guys. Like, I'm trying to figure out, let's see, I think this is the side that faces outward from the wall. So it's just really nice to be able to see all of these blooms, because as you walk around the plant, obviously one side faces the wall, but as you kind of walk around in the living room, you can see blooms from pretty much any angle. The other thing is this plant has just grown crazy, you guys. I did just recently wrap another one of these long vines that it was putting out back around one of the sides of the new trellis that I had put in here at the, let's see, I guess that was in fall of 2024. And so I wrapped one of the long vines that have grown around this pole here. And as you can see, it hasn't really put out any leaves yet, but it already put out like a peduncle and flowers. It's like this plant is just like prioritizing its blooms over everything else. But I have noticed recently, where is it? There it is, that some of the other vines that I wrapped around that same time are now finally starting to put out leaves. So hopefully you can see a little baby leaf that is starting to come in right there. So that's nice. I've just kind of been waiting to see that starting to happen. And I do still need to figure out a better place to put this, you guys, because as I had mentioned in, I think it was in that 3 years of growing Hoya video, you can see the leaves are very chlorotic looking up on top from the Soltec light, and they are much darker and nicer in how I want them to look down here towards the bottom. So I need to get it somewhere where it's not as bright, that level of light. It's just a little too close to the Soltec light. It's basically what's going on, but I'm not entirely certain where I'm going to put it yet. But I mean, the rest of the leaves like down around on the sides and everything obviously look fabulous, but I'm just kind of a little bit concerned about all that's going on top. But ironically, it keeps putting out more and more leaves up here on the top from the existing vines than it does on the other vines. So obviously the level of light is good for growth, right? I don't know why I'm making quote marks. It is good for growth. I don't need to do quotes, right? It's good for growth. We know because it's putting out a lot of leaves, but just, and it's not hurting the plant, obviously, if it's still pushing out a ton of leaves and everything, but it's just not like how I want it to look. I prefer the darker leaves with that silvery, oh, God. It's dropping all its dead flowers from that one peduncle all over me right now. But I want this to be more like this, the darker color with the silver, because the silver gets a little bit, it's there, but it just gets a little bit washed out when the leaves go a little bit chlorotic. So, I mean, I'm not like in some crazy rush to move it because like I said, there's nothing wrong with the plant, but it's just something I would like to do at some point. But so happy with how this plant has been doing. I don't know what I'm going to do if it keeps just putting out super fast, super crazy long vines like it's been doing, because there's only so many times I can wrap this plant around this trellis. And it definitely, I checked recently, it definitely doesn't need a repot or anything yet. So I don't know, we'll just address that when it gets to that point. Okay, I have two more Hoyas on the list. One of them wasn't technically on the list, but I don't know, it's doing something interesting, so I just wanted to show it to you. So I guess it is now kind of on the list, as it were. But this first one is probably not going to be a big surprise to anybody, especially if you watched my restyling video that I did recently. So once again, this was a freebie Hoya that was given to me by Texas Plant Connection when I filmed a tour at their place back in September. I think it was back in September. And this plant like hadn't put out a ton of new growth. It was putting out a new leaf when I got it from them, but then it hadn't done like a ton of growing, but now it's really started to take off and it is quickly becoming one of my favorite Hoyas. So this is Hoya NAP016 and may not look like, you know, crazy much, just looks like your standard kind of green Hoya with a little bit of that silver grayish splashiness on it. Is a smaller leaf Hoya, my kind of Hoya. But what I didn't realize before, because nobody told me, was that this is a fuzzy leaf Hoya, and it does not look fuzzy, right? Like, it's not one of those plants where you look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, it looks hairy. No, it does not look hairy. As a matter of fact, we're gonna have an example of a plant that's part of it is looking a little bit hairy, not on the leaves, but another part of it on the list here in a bit. But it is so soft to the touch, you guys. Like, the leaves are so soft. There's like this layer of just tiny little baby hairs that you can't even see. Like, I'm even just holding it up to the light, like I can't see it. It doesn't look fuzzy at all, but when you touch it, it is so, so soft. And I think I didn't realize it at first because the oldest leaves that were on this plant when I got it, like I think they've probably been maybe gotten wet over time and maybe been sprayed with pest treatments, who knows. And so they didn't feel super soft like that, but the new ones that have come in, oh my gosh. And I have not sprayed this, you guys, ever since I discovered that they were super soft like that. I have not sprayed this with my DIY pest spray because I don't want the softness to go away. Like, oh, I seriously, it's behind my couch on one part of the couch where sometimes I sit. And I just like reach back there and I'm like, oh my God, like I just pet this plant. It feels so soft. I should probably stop doing it. I'm probably annoying the plant. Like, I mean, do plants really like it when we like touch them? I don't know. I feel like sometimes they're probably like, can you quit putting your oils on my leaves, ma'am? But it's just so soft, like I can't stop touching it. And I wish like, so the two newest leaves right now have already almost fully hardened off here. I wish they weren't fully hardened off quite yet, because when they come in, the new leaves come in this beautiful, like deep burgundy shade, you guys. It is so gorgeous. And I am just, oh my God, I am loving this. I know I mentioned in some video last year that I wasn't sure if I was going to keep all of these little freebie Hoyas that they had given me. I'm definitely keeping this one. It's such a cool little plant, and I just can't get over like how soft and fuzzy it is. And I just love the color of those new leaves when they come in. And I don't know if it's partially sun stressing because it is in a southern facing window, or if it's just the new leaf. Well, the new leaves come in like that kind of color, but what I'm trying to say, I feel like I'm just babbling here, okay? What I'm trying to say is sometimes when new leaves on Hoya come in, if they come in like a pinkish tone or a burgundy tone or a reddish tone, if you have them in a southern facing window, the intensity of that new leaf color can be increased by that high level of light in like a southern facing window. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't know if it would be, the coloration on those new leaves would be as intense if I had it in a different window with not as bright of light. But I just absolutely love it. Now, the next toy I want to show you is one of the ones that I also got from Texas Plant Connection, but this is one that I bought in November. I kind of got talked into buying it because she kept saying, oh, it's so cheap. You're going to look it up and you're going to be like so shocked at how cheap I'm offering this for. And I just wanted to share this one because, first of all, it took the longest to start growing out of Hold on, you guys. All right, sorry, you guys. I had to divert a potential crisis. One of the cats was about to knock over one of the softbox lights. But as I was saying, out of the Hoyas that I got from Texas Plant Connection back in November, this one took the longest to put out new leaves, and it has now finally put out some new leaves, but it also put out a crazy looking leaf. And so I just wanted to show it to you because it just cracks me up. First of all, that it took till it was super cold for it to push out any new leaves when the rest of the Hoyas I got in November from them have been pushing out leaves since I got them. But then that it gave me this crazy looking leaf. So real quick, I hope I still have this. I'm pretty sure I shared this on my Instagram, so I should have footage to show you. But just as a reminder, or for anybody who's new here, the Hoya Wilbur Graves that we just looked at, I got that approximately a year and a half ago at the Texas Aroid Market. And at that show, I had actually bought a smaller version of the same plant first because I had walked around the show and I hadn't seen any other Hoya Wilbur Graves Russias, that's a Russia one, anywhere, and I'd only seen that one small one, so I went ahead and snatched it up. And then at the end of that show, I found this large one that we just looked at, and I was like, oh wow, I wish I had seen that before, but I didn't want to return the other one, so I kept the other one for a while, and then I ended up selling it to somebody else. But that plant, that smaller Wilbur Graves, one of the first new leaves that it gave me was crazy weird compared to the rest of the leaves. And like I said, hopefully I have footage that I can show you up here. I mean, it was just longer, narrower, more silver. I was like, what is this? And so now my Hoya, I'm going to get it right this time, Walliniana variegated has done the same thing. So this plant is being a little bit crazy. So these two leaves right here are the new leaves that it finally pushed out. And I was like, oh yay. And then I swear it was like overnight, this crazy looking like curly Q leaf right here that is longer, bigger. I mean, hopefully you guys can tell. Look how weird that is shaped and everything compared to the other ones. Now it does have more of the green on it, so it has more of the coloration of this, but it's not that that's shocking me. It's just how like curly Q looking it is and how much bigger. I mean, it's so much bigger than these other leaves that are on here, and it just threw me for a loop. I was like, what is going on here? It almost looks like it's trying to be like the Hoya Kingiana intervariegated that I have that is growing next to it. That's what that leaf really reminds me of. So I just thought that was kind of funky, but I am happy to see that it's pushing out new growth, and it does look like it's actually, can you guys even see it? That leaf is so small. Come on, camera. You see that tiny little leaf right there? The little baby leaf coming in, that is actually going to be an entirely new vine that it is pushing off there. So I'm super excited that it is finally starting to kind of take off, because for the longest time I was just sitting there looking at it like, are you going to do something? And then of course it waits till it's the coldest point in the year and decided, yeah, all right, I'll grow for you now. So at least there's that. But let me grab our next plant. All right, you guys, so I just realized, and this was not intentional, that we are apparently going in order of genus/plant family today. So up next, I do have two Anthurium on my winter favorites list. This first one might shock you that it's not the other Carla cross, because this is a Carla Blackie cross. The other one is not on my list. Well, I'll just say this one was chosen to put on the list over the other one for a specific reason, and we will get to that in a second. But this is my oh so beautiful Anthurium Pink Lemonade by Bessier AFF by Carla. Absolutely adore this plant. This is the newest leaf that you are looking at. It did put this leaf out in the winter. And quite honestly, that is the main reason that this one made the list over my other Carla cross, which is a Dark Crystal Mag by Carla. That plant has not given me a new leaf since we shifted into the colder weather of winter. Now, I don't know if also that has to do with the fact that I had taken it out of my cabinet, my IKEA greenhouse cabinet, and put it into ambient. But the funny thing is this one was living in ambient all the way until like, I guess maybe 2 months ago now. I moved it into the cabinet, and it was putting out just as many leaves in ambient as the other one was in the cabinet, so I don't know. But this one did give me a new leaf over the winter, and for the most part, my Anthuriums did slow down though, you guys, honestly, except for the next one we're going to look at, because I don't know what the heck, this one's on the list because it's just been growing like crazy compared to all the rest of my Anthurium. But in general, most of them slowed down, but all of them have given me a new leaf except for the other Carla. Okay, it's making a liar out of me. I'm gonna have to grab it and we're gonna have to look at it because I just glanced over there and it's putting out a new leaf. It's like, listen, bitch, like I'm putting out growth. Don't be telling them I'm not growing. Okay, well, it took it till the coldest day of the year to push out some new growth in ambient, mind you, but this one put this beautiful leaf out ahead of it, which is why it got put on the list. I guess we'll throw the other one on the list now, okay? Instead of 10 on my list, we'll have 11. But absolutely love this plant. I'm glad that I didn't see any kind of negative things start to happen. So that was kind of my biggest concern, since this was the first winter where I had more than one Anthurium in my collection and some rarer Anthuriums. I was just kind of concerned about like if I was going to see negative impacts, especially if they were in ambient, which I do. How many are in ambient right now? 1, 2, 3. I've got 4 in ambient right now, and I will say I feel like they slowed down a little bit more than the ones that I moved out of ambient into the cabinet. And the only reason, once again, that I moved those out of ambient into the cabinet was because those ones were directly in the windows in my office here, and these windows are still the builder grade windows, and they get insanely cold when it's cold outside. Actually, guys, I went to plug in one of the softbox lights in the outlet that's between the two windows in here, and the amount of cold air I could feel coming through the outlet, like the little gaps around the edge of the plate on the outlet, was insane. Like, I can't believe how much cold air comes through there. I need to figure out like better insulation of some things in this household, I guess. But anyway, so that's why these got moved into the cabinet, was more for a temperature reason than like humidity or anything like that, because the humidity in my cabinet right now, because it's super, as I just pointed out, super freaking cold outside today, is only 32%. And I've never weather stripped or done anything super fancy with that cabinet. Well, my plants have done fine with it. But the main reason, once again, that they're in there is because it was just too cold where they were before. But absolutely loving this one. Now let me go grab the one that's trying to make me a liar right now. Okay, guys, so here is my beautiful Dark Crystal Mag by Carla. Absolutely love this Anthurium. This is the second largest, that's going to sound wrong the way I'm going to say that. Out of all of my Anthurium, this one has the second largest leaves. Does that make sense? So my Radicans by Luxurians is the biggest one I have right now in terms of largest leaves. And this is the second largest Anthurium in my collection so far. Although I will say my other pink lemonade cross, I'm looking at it in the cabinet right now, it's starting to size up pretty quickly too. So it's quickly approaching this size. But this plant really, like I said, after I took it out of the cabinet, it gave me, I think it was putting out this leaf when I took it out of the cabinet, and then it just sat there not really doing anything. Well, I say not doing anything, but look at these roots. We're gonna have to repot this one soon. Like, and I had just repotted it too when I moved it out of the cabinet, but look at this. Look how like root bound it is already. So that might be part of it. It was probably just working on its roots, and now it's root bound and it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll work on pushing out some leaves. But it is now also officially, I think, yes, officially in cataphyll. So that means we're probably about to get a flower on this one as well. And this new leaf is in a very awkward spot, but hopefully you can see it's putting out its first new leaf over the winter now right here. I love how blood red these leaves are when they first come in. So I'm super excited about that. And hopefully you guys can see what I mean by in cataphyll. Like, instead of coming out of the petiole of this leaf, which was the last leaf, it shot off its own shoot petiole over here and came out of there, which means that the next thing that comes out of this leaf could be a flower. I've seen it happen where sometimes it just gives you another leaf, but odds are it's probably about to give me its first flower. So that is super exciting. So, all right, last minute addition to the list. But this next Anthurium, like I said, I had to reach out to Fontanimal Plant House, who I got the next one we're going to look at from. I reached out to them and I was like, is this a flower? Like, I couldn't even believe how juvenile this plant was when it gave me its first flower, and now it's given me another one. It's just absolutely insane. But let me put this one back real quick. All right, you guys. Oh, and by the way, I am trying out a new clip-on mic today, so hopefully the audio is okay. I did a bunch of tests before I started recording today, but you know how it goes. Sometimes the tests seem okay, and then once I actually record a video, I get in there and I'm like, maybe I should have adjusted the settings a little bit differently. So fingers crossed though, it's okay. So this next Anthurium, like I said, from Fontanimal Plant House. Now this was also in ambient, living in these directly in these windows, and I moved it into the cabinet because of the temperature. And I think it gave me the first flower, which has died off now, shortly after I put it into the cabinet, but you guys, it was so tiny. So this is my Anthurium Funky Dark Mama by Regardens Port. This plant also is on the list today because check out the size up of this leaf here. This newest leaf, look how big that is compared to these previous leaves. Is that even the, okay, this was the one before the size up, which almost looks a little bit smaller than that one I just showed you. And then we went to this. So this plant is now starting to kind of come into its own and starting to get that shape that I'm expecting it to look like as it matures. So I'm super excited about that. But once again, one of the most shocking things to me was the tiny little flower it put out. And then now it put out another one. And the first one, part of the reason I had messaged them on Palm Street and said, hey, is this a flower? Is because like, you couldn't tell, like it wasn't, the tip of it was kind of like a whitish yellow color. I think I still have the picture. It wasn't a great picture either though, because it was so tiny, you guys. I mean, look at how like, I don't even know, I'm probably gonna, can you guys, the camera's probably not gonna wanna focus on the actual flower here. Yeah, I'll have to put some footage up here of this tiny flower. But you guys, it's tiny. It is so tiny. And so I was just so kind of like, okay, it didn't have the elongated, I've been fighting a migraine for 2 days, you guys, and plant terminology is going out of my brain. The Spadex, yes? Spadex? No. Oh my God, I'll flash it up on screen for you. It's been a struggle, you guys. I have no idea. I've never had a migraine last this long and it is really annoying me. But anyways, this part of the flower, normally it's like very elongated, right? And conical, not conical, cylindrical. I'm telling you, it's a struggle right now. But this time, that part of the flower, it was just like this tiny little bulb on the tip. And even Lexi and Phil at Fontanimal were like, maybe it's just an aborted leaf. But this one that came in now, same thing. Like it's just kind of at the very tip. It kind of looks like that part of a flower. But this one actually has the flower, oh my gosh, the flower. I'm mixing up my terminology right now, you guys. I'm so sorry. But anyways, I can see that part. So I know it's a flower this time, which means this plant has already gone through caterpillar like twice. And it's tiny. I mean, it was just a little baby seedling when I got it from them back at the end of September. It's only, I think we've had a few leaves, the oldest leaves have died off, but it's only given me like maybe 4 or 5 new leaves and then 2 flowers. Like I was just so shocked by that. And I can already see it's about to push out another new leaf or maybe another flower from this leaf. So this thing has just been growing like mad. And I'm so excited for it to be starting to size up and to kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like as it matures. Like I said before, this is a very different shaped Anthurium from any of the other Anthuriums I own. I don't have any other kind of really elongated ones. Like the most elongated one that I own outside of this one is the one we just looked at, but this one is going to be even like, I think more of a narrow shape and even more of a elongated shape and probably a much flatter sinus up on top. But I am just so excited about this plant and it's just been doing so well. It is rooting very nicely. It's not like root bound and needing to be repotted or anything yet, but it has been also spreading its roots more over the course of the winter as well. So I'm just really impressed with this one, especially during the coldest months of the year. All right, you guys. So some of the plants that I want to look at next are rehab. Well, 2 of the plants I want to look at next are rehab plants, and those are my Marantas. So real quick, catch people up, or once again, if you're new here, I unfortunately got flat mites for the first time last year, and I am honestly not even certain when it happened. The first thought I had was that the outbreak happened on my cyclamen, which was living above my sink in my kitchen, because that's the first plant that I discovered them on, and it was bad, you guys. So I immediately sequestered that plant upstairs out of the way, and then I discovered later on that apparently that is not where it started. So I do put a lot of my propagations for my plants that I propagate in water up in the windowsill in my kitchen above my sink. And come to find out that I'm pretty sure now that the flat mite infestation started on the Marantas in my bathroom, and I had put a cutting from my red Maranta up by the sink. And I think that's how it ended up on the cyclamen. But they went straight for that cyclamen, you guys. I never found them on any other plants other than that Maranta cutting and the cyclamen up above the sink. Never found one on any other plant. So they literally hopped off of that Maranta cutting and went straight for that cyclamen for some reason. So I had sequestered the cyclamen away, and I didn't discover until months later that they were like on my Marantas. And for some reason, they never touched my green Maranta. I still, to this day, have not found a flat mite on that Maranta, but they massively infested my red Maranta and then spread to my lemon lime Maranta. So back in, I think it was back maybe in September, I'm pretty sure, I'll flash it up on screen for you. We had gone the route after me trying all kinds of other things to get rid of these flat mites. I decided to do the sulfur spray that a lot of other YouTubers, planty YouTubers, swear by for getting rid of flat mites. And I'm happy to report that I'm pretty sure it worked. So I'm pretty sure, though, I haven't seen any flat mites on them, but I'm still nervous to bring them out of their quarantine room. So we're going to go look at them up there. But you guys, it is a night and day difference from what they looked like when we sprayed them. I will do some side-by-side comparisons for you to what they look like now. So hopefully you can see, we'll start with the red Maranta. This one was the worst. It was so infested. This thing used to be so full and trailing, and yeah, all the leaves were like curling up, crisping up, dying off because of these flat mites. Like, it was bad. The red Maranta was the one I seriously was most concerned about. Like, I was gonna lose it because of this. Like, it was not going to survive this infestation. I was a little bit less concerned about the lemon lime Maranta because it wasn't as badly infested, but I am just so happy to see all this new growth in winter, mind you. Like, so we started spraying this thing, which, by the way, I only ever sprayed it twice, you guys. I know a lot of people were asking me about like how many times you have to spray it with the sulfur treatment, and I saw a lot of varying things online, but I went with the trusted YouTubers, other planty YouTubers that I know, their experiences, and a lot of them were like, really, unless your plant's pumping out a ton of new growth, which it's probably not if it's that infested with flat mites, you can just spray it once. And because it just, when it dries, it coats the leaves. If eggs hatch for flat mites, they're going to hatch onto sulfur. So they're going to die right away, right? Your bigger concern is if the plant was not horribly infested and it was still pushing out a bunch of like brand new leaves consistently. Then the problem is, like, if the eggs hatch and they can get off of the sulfur coated leaf quick enough and onto another leaf, then they could survive and they could like colonize on that leaf and stay alive because there's no sulfur on it. Well, my plant was not really putting out hardly any new leaves at all. So I ended up spraying it twice just to be safe, but I did it 2 weeks apart. And that's it. That's all I've done, you guys, because it wasn't really pushing out a lot of new growth. And now it is. So now I'm kind of like being a little more cautious. I did get some beneficial bugs, so some predatory mites to put on there just kind of as a preventative, even though I'm not seeing anything, in case there's some hiding out in some crevices or something like that. Because as you can see, it is now pushing out a ton of new growth. So I want to make sure that if there are any lingering pests hiding in a crevice I can't see, that those bugs, those predatory mites, the good bugs, are going to go hunt those bugs out and take care of business. And I will move them back into my bathroom at some point. I am just so paranoid right now, you guys. So paranoid about it because I started finding them on other plants too, which probably had to do from me watering with my watering can and, you know, sticking the nose of the watering can down in the Marantas, and then it got some flat mites on it and it got on other plants. I mean, I have a whole video on how plants get pests in your house, you guys. I'll link it down in the description below for you if you want to check it out, because there are many, many ways that they can spread, even if it's on plants living in completely different rooms. And for the longest time, you guys, it wasn't until like, I think about a week ago that I removed all of the leaves that had rolled up and died off from the time that we sprayed it until now, because I just didn't want to remove any of the sulfur spray. I just kind of wanted it to sit there with all that sulfur all over the place to try to take care of what was left. And like I said, I think it has successfully taken care of the problem. If you guys didn't see the video where I talked about how to use the sulfur spray and showed spraying down the plants and everything, I'll link that down below for you as well. And the sulfur that I used is linked in my Amazon storefront. The link to that is down in the description below for you as well. I will say right now, I know there is a pre-mixed sulfur spray out there that you can use. I don't recommend it. And I don't recommend it because the other planty YouTubers that have gone through this have all sworn by the powdered form that you then mix into water yourself. So that is what I use, and it seems to have worked. So, you know, I believe if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I would recommend getting that versus the pre-mixed sulfur spray. But up next, I want to take a look at my Ctenanthe setosa, which it's sitting on the floor. I didn't realize how tall it is now. I think I'm gonna have to scoot way back to show this to you, but let me grab it and we'll see. Okay guys, so this is my beautiful Ctenanthe setosa, and I did repot this plant a few months back. I'll flash up on screen for you. I can't remember how long ago it was, but it threw a little bit of a fit. It killed off quite a few leaves in the process, but it has been pumping out so much new growth since then. There's a new leaf coming in. Hopefully you can see it right there unfurling, and it's just going crazy. And look how much like the roots have already started to spread around in here, you guys. So it definitely was happy to have that repot. Now, just a reminder that the last time we repotted this, we didn't take it up to a larger pot size. We actually divided the plant, and we divided 2 plants in that video. And this was one where when we divided it, we actually removed all of the loose severed roots and everything and stripped all of the soil off of it. So pretty traumatic process, but I will show you, I'll flash up on screen for you what it looked like after we divided it, just so you can see how like crazy full it has become again since then. So I could have divided this again if I wanted to, but I was just kind of, I wasn't feeling it. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it. And I had a pot that it would fit in, and it would still fit next to my TV in my living room, which is where it's always lived. And so I was kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'll just take it up a larger pot size. It has started to fill in so much, you guys. I'm minorly like regretting that decision now, because the pot fits okay next to the TV, but now all this foliage is kind of like getting a little bit squished over there. But how beautiful does it look? I love how sculptural Ctenanthe setosas look, because they get these super long petioles and then these beautiful like lance-shaped leaves with that kind of fine fishbone detailing on them, and then of course the beautiful reddish purplish backsides to the leaves. But this plant is so resilient that it not only bounced back fabulously, but it also decided to recently flower for me for the first time in the middle of winter. And it is hairy. It is a hairy flower. It is so hairy. It is crazy. I can't even believe it. But hopefully you can see right there, that is the flower. Probably gonna be hard for you to see how hairy it is because this camera, like I said, doesn't like to get super close up, but I have a picture from with my phone so you can see just how hairy this is. But yeah, first time it's flowered for me. Hopefully you can also see there's like a node right here, little node. So this leaf, there is a leaf on the top there, but this leaf developed a node in the middle there, and that is where the flower came out of. And I had no idea. I think I knew that they came out of the side of a petiole, like the side of a leaf like that, but I didn't realize they came out like that high up. That's really high up. It's right up here. Like I was thinking they might come out a little bit lower. And I think maybe I was just thinking that because like all of my Calathea that have flat, well, no, that's not true. Strike that. I don't know why I was thinking that. Because my Calathea warskowesii, the flowers come out even higher than, I guess maybe that's what threw me for a loop. My Calatheas, where the flowers come out of the side of a leaf instead of like in the middle of the top of a shoot, they all come out way at the base of the plant, like my Calathea Freddy. So I think that's why it threw me for a little bit of a loop, but really fascinated to see that. I'm interested to see if it's gonna throw out any more flowers. It hasn't done it yet, although there is a rather furry looking stem over here as well. So I'm willing to bet that this leaf right here that has recently come out, just looking at how fuzzy that petiole is. Oh yeah, there's another one back there too. I can see now. There's another one over here that's also got a node. Let's see, it's hard with this one. It's so big. Hopefully you guys can see there's a little node right there. Little green node on that one. So I'm probably about to get a flower out of there too. So this thing is probably about to be in full bloom, all starting in the middle of winter. And it, like I said, it threw a little bit of a fit when I repotted it and killed off a bunch of leaves and stuff. But other than that, like, it made up for it. Look at all those beautiful leaves. So really, really impressed with this plant. Okay, The next and last prayer plant family plant that I always forget how sticky that plant is. I want to look at is, probably no surprise to you guys, it is my favorite Calathea ever. It is my white fusion Calathea. But as usual, well, two things. One, she's bigger than that plant now. She has just grown so much over the winter. It is insane. And then as I've always mentioned, I just always assume she has a pest on her. So I'm really hesitant to bring her in here around my other plants. So we're going to look at her in place in my bathroom. I might even be trying to do a little bit of a split screen, me talking, showing you the plants in this video. I've been thinking about trying it, so maybe I am trying it. If I am trying it, comment down below and let me know if you like this look and way of doing things more so than what I normally do, which is just voiceover while I'm filming the plant in my bathroom. But I will say she has killed off almost all of what I will refer to as her baby leaves. These leaves were tiny leaves. They were probably about like this long, this wide, and they were all down at the base of the plant. And over the course of the winter, she has just been rapidly killing them off. I was kind of concerned. I was like, why are we killing off all these leaves? Because I had also repotted her. I'll flash up on screen when I did it. Once again, I always feel like, I'm like, oh, it was like 3 months ago, but then it's going to be like 6 months ago or something crazy. But anyways, this is when I repotted her. And so I was like, oh crap, like, are you just throwing a fit? What are you doing? No, she was not throwing a fit. I think she just decided, I'm a grown-up now. And so she basically was just killing off all of these baby leaves in favor of pushing out these much larger, much taller leaves, as you can see. You guys, I did not know. And I think the reason I didn't know what I'm about to tell you is because a lot of people give up on this plant. They get it, it gets spider mites, they chuck it, it gets spider mites. Almost always it gets spider mites, okay? It's just, I'm going to be honest with you. If you have a white fusion Calathea and it didn't get spider mites, I would be like, wait, what is happening in your household? Please give me your secrets, because it is just such a spider mite magnet. So most of the time people get spider mites and then either they chuck it because they're just like, oh my God, it's just so infested, or they end up losing all the foliage or cutting all the foliage off, and then they think it's not coming back to life because it can be a little bit of a slow kickoff for it to start pushing out its new growth. Because I've cut mine almost all the way back, as I've told you guys before. It took a little bit for it to start kicking off new growth, but when it does, it goes fast. So I think I never really see a lot of people post pictures of mature ones because people don't keep them long enough to get them to the size that mine is. So I didn't realize that it gets very much like the setosa, the Ctenanthe setosa we were just looking at, gets very, very tall, long petioles. And so it is just getting massively tall, massively bushy, and starting to look just, it's almost, let me hold up the oh my God, setosa again. It's like this, like if its leaves weren't as bushy and broad as they are, because this has narrower leaves than that, and if they didn't come out in more of a layered effect, I hope that's making sense. Like this is layered. We have some that are short, some that are tall, but these leaves aren't quite as broad. So I feel like this doesn't look as bushy as the white fusion, but if the white fusion had narrower leaves like this, you would be able to see like the petioles are almost identical to this. They're super thin, narrow, long petioles, very sculptural. But you guys, look how beautiful she is looking. Like I just can't. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm just, oh, I talk about this plant so freaking much. I'm telling you, if just get one and stay on top of pest prevention and maintenance. Just always assume there's a pest. Assume there's a pest. Make sure you're either using beneficial bugs like at least once a quarter on the plant, or spraying it preventatively at least once a month. Just always assume there is a bug on there. Do not just get into a comfort zone and be like, oh, I'm sure everything's fine, and not do anything pest prevention or maintenance wise on that plant for like more than don't go longer than a month without doing anything, basically, because that's when things can get out of hand, and they will get out of hand fast. But if you stay on top of it, this is such a rewarding plant to grow, you guys. It's so resilient. Even if you don't stay on top of it and you end up with a problem, like I said, you can cut it all the way back and it will come back. Like, I just absolutely love this plant. I wish more people would give it a chance and give it a chance to make a comeback when things do go wrong. because then you could just have this gorgeous plant hanging out in your bathroom like I do. I just absolutely love it. And once again, it's notorious for like people constantly talk about how this one is more fussy than other Calathea in terms of humidity, and it gets crispy leaf tips and all this other stuff. You guys, no. No, and I know a lot of you are like, well, it lives in your bathroom, it gets humidity once a day from the shower. That humidity is not in there for that long, you guys. It really isn't. And the bigger point is, like, right now, because it's super cool outside, the humidity, like I said, the humidity in my IKEA greenhouse cabinet is only 32. It's like 20 something in this house elsewhere. That plant is living for all but 15 minutes of the day in 20% humidity in my bathroom, which also is not one of the warmest rooms in the house. And it's fine. It does not look any different than it does in the summer. It occasionally, really honestly, the only time I get crispy leaf tips on that plant is if the leaf is getting ready to die off. It starts crisping at the tip and then it just crisps all the way up and dies off. That's how the baby leaves that I was talking about that have died off over the winter on that plant, that's how they've died off. But it's still just been pushing out a ton of new growth. It's got new leaves coming in right now in the middle of freaking winter. And once again, if you watched my video last week on chlorine and water, and I know a lot of you were like, have you really not seen any change in your plants since you switched to watering with tap water, what has now been 12 months ago? No, I haven't. And if I haven't seen it happen on this plant, which everybody swears is super fussy about things like that, then here, what's how's the saying go? The proof is in the pudding, right? Now, once again, as I mentioned in that video, not all water is created equal. If you do have like softened water, for example, you could be having problems. But once again, it's not related to the chlorine or the chloramine. That's related to the salts. And that's the main thing I was trying to get at in that video too, is like, it's not actually the chlorine and chloramine that are causing issues. It is the salts that can potentially be in the water, but really it's the salts in the water in combination with like the salts in your fertilizers, depending on how frequently you're fertilizing. Because I don't even remember if I said this in that video, you guys, but my mom's plant that I showed that she's had for 44 or more years, and always water with tap water, where they live now, and they've been living there for, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years. That's the first place they've lived that they actually have a water softener. So she's watering that plant with water softened water, and she's not having a problem with it. But once again, she never fertilizes it. So the level of salts in her softened water are low enough to not harm the plant, as long as she's not adding additional salts via fertilizers and everything. If she was fertilizing, for example, every single watering, I'm pretty sure we would be seeing problems in that plant, but we're not. And that's not the only house plant she has, and her other one's fine too. So I digress. I just wanted to bring that up because I know a lot of you were like, really? Really? Have you really seen nothing wrong? I haven't seen anything wrong, you guys. You're looking at my plants. Like every plant we've looked at today, these have all been watered. Everything you see has been watered for now 12 months with just my standard tap water and just doing my regular fertilization habits, which I explained in that video. So that's all I really have to say about that. But I wanted to bring that up while we were looking at my White Fusion Calathea, because I'm just telling you right now, like the way people talk about this plant, if it was going to be a problem, it would be a problem on this plant. But also I feel like this plant's not as big a problem as people like to make it out to be. And so that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up as well. Like I swear by this plant. Once again, just stay on top of your pest maintenance and prevention. It is just such a rewarding plant to grow. Enough about that. Okay, we have one more plant to look at, and I didn't get it down from where it's hanging yet, so let me go grab it. Okay guys, so up next we have my parallel Peperomia, which I don't want to take out of this hanging planter because it just gets tangled trying to take it out. So let me see if I can just drape this down where it's not in our way and I'm not having to hold it up and make my arm extremely tired and strain my neck, because that's not going to help with this migraine that does not want to go away. Okay, all right, so part of the reason I wanted to bring this one out is because I had mentioned to you guys probably back in, I want to say in the fall, that I was getting a lot of these vines coming in and then they weren't getting any leaves up here, and they just kept branching out like that with no leaves. And part of me was wondering if Scooter wasn't biting them off or something like that. Oh, there's like a hanging out like dead one of those. Well, there's several hanging out dead one of those. Not sure what that's all about, but I guess those are just some of the ones that didn't get leaves that broke off. But I'm happy to announce that it is now, over the course of the winter, starting to put out leaves on these branches or these vines that it's pushing out. So I am super excited about that. Now, I do want to take a moment to mention that I have read and I have heard that Peperomia are supposed to grow more in the winter. This has never been my experience except with this plant, because, and I'm just saying with this plant because this plant does grow a lot like this in the summer as well, but because it's finally putting leaves on these bare vines that it had been pushing out in fall, and maybe towards the end of summer it was doing that too, these bare vines, I kind of like feel like maybe this one did grow a little bit more in the winter. But in general, that has not been my experience with peperomias, but I'm just super excited that this one has taken off. And it is absolutely loving where we moved it to hanging in the kitchen in those windows, you guys, because it's been growing even faster since we moved it up there. So I'm really excited about that. But the other reason that I wanted to put this on the list today was because since we moved it up there, it's flowering, you guys. And it dawned on me when I noticed it was flowering yesterday, I've never had this peperomia flower before, which is saying something, because peperomias, if you are not aware, peperomias tend to flower very easily and a lot. And my other peperomias all flower like nonstop. There's always some kind of flower on them. But this one, I had to really think about it. I went back and looked at photos. It has never flowered for me before until we hung it up in the kitchen. So it's definitely happy living up there. And so let me see. Of course, the flowers are all like way down where I can't like easily hold this up. Let's see here. If I can get this to where the camera will focus on it and not me. You see that little flower on my thumb right there? So that's what the flowers on peperomias look like. Very honestly, they're very similar to like a Anthurium flower, just much, much smaller, but the shape is kind of similar. So that one is flowering. We've got another one over here that's flowering. So I was just really taken aback by that. And like I said, I just sat there and stared at it for a second. I was like, why am I being weird? Like, why am I staring at this? Like, it was first thing when I woke up in the morning too, you guys. So my brain wasn't fully like alert yet. And I just kept looking at it and I was like, why is my brain like trying to tell me something's weird about this? And it finally dawned on me that this plant has never flowered for me before. So I was just super excited about that, and just super excited in general that it's happy where we moved it, because you never know when you move plants. And this vine over here is cracking me up because instead of trailing it downwards, this offshoot is just going straight up. I don't know what it is doing. You guys see that? And it's putting out some more leaves on the end there. I'm not sure where it's going. So it's doing all kinds of fun new things since we moved it to hanging. I wish I had moved it to hanging sooner. So I'm really excited to see kind of what continues to happen with this plant. But I absolutely love it. This is one of my favorite peperomias, you guys. And like, if you want a trailing peperomia, like this peperomia, so parallel peperomia, did I even say that? I think I did. Parallel peperomia, scientifically, it's now a Peperomia tetragona, I think. It used to be a Peperomia petiolata. Trailing peperomias, highly recommend this one. And then obviously the Peperomia prostrata, which is the string of turtles. Absolutely love that one as well. This is probably an easier one to care for, though, you guys. Like, if you really struggle, let me put it this way. If you struggle with like string of pearls, string of dolphins, that kind of thing, string of turtles, even though it's not the same species, or not the same, what am I trying to say? It's not the same species, obviously. It's not the same genus of plant. Even though it's not the same genus, if you struggle with those other string of plants, you're probably going to struggle with a string of turtles. But this is very different because it's got the thicker vines. It's not like a thin vined plant. This is probably a safer bet to start with if you want to try a trailing peperomia, but absolutely love it. But those are all of my winter favorites, you guys. And considering how well they've done during the winter, I'm super excited to see how they're going to do during the spring, which, fingers crossed, looking at the temperatures next week, I think we might officially be moving into spring next week. Once again, I say fingers crossed because a few years ago, we went through all of March with spring-like weather, and then like in April, we had a deep freeze. So I'm really hoping with the temperatures looking how they're looking next week, that it's going to stay that way throughout the following 3 months. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!